not normal transactions. And since then, AI has been working with us, and I would say it's everywhere. Everyone do have AI in their pocket, so smartphone is full of artificial intelligence solutions. But as highlighted, artificial intelligence is not the artificial intelligence, it's an umbrella. And in fact, if we go back more to history, artificial intelligence has been in education more than 100 years. In 2012, Thorndike, professor, introduces ideas where they can those punch hole cards, so very slow. In science fiction, and the fears becomes mostly from science fiction, and maybe the Terminator, the movie, and stuff like that. But it's new, because artificial intelligence has been in science fiction immediately after Darwin's The Origin of Species book. So in 1850 something, there was already a book where the book was discussing about evolution of machines, how machines can evolutionary build a new machines. But in that book, the machines were not evil, so the evil part is newer. If we go further in the history, we are worried how machines are taking our jobs. Well, nothing new. That has happened 600 years. Since Gutenberg printing press machines has replaced human job time after time. And always there has been new jobs. The challenge is not that machines are taking jobs, but the challenge is how we reskill or upskill people to new jobs and how we predict those new jobs. Going even longer in the history, artificial intelligence has been in our myths for more than 2,000 years. No matter if we take India, China, Greek, or Northern Europe, in every culture there is myths about man-made machines that are either war machines, like in, for example, in India you have such, in Greek mythology they have, in Chinese and in Nordic countries mythology, we all have. And also something that artists fell in love. There are always stories where some artist builds a sculpture and the sculpture, for a reason or some, comes alive and then artist fell in love. So there is nothing new on discussion that people might fall in love with robots. And I think in Blade Runner that has discussed some 40 years ago. So with this short history I want to highlight that we are not facing anything that don't have a history. Artificial intelligence and robotics do have a really long history, and we should also understand the historical perspective. And that's one of the hidden agendas. The non-hidden agenda, scaling the education with artificial intelligence or scaling the personalization, is a bigger topic. And because we have that professional team here now, I suggest that every one of you introduce what you are doing, how it is related to AI, scaling, and especially the scientific history, because now we want to highlight that artificial intelligence is not science fiction. We want to now discuss the science of artificial intelligence. But over to you. Who wants to start? Yeah.
Hello everyone. It was nice introduction to AI, Mr. Harris. Thank you very much. So I am currently working as faculty in computer science engineering in IIT Tirupati. So I teach data science that includes artificial intelligence, machine learning topics. Before, so my academics is a very recent thing. Before that I was in industry for 7 years working in data science related topics. So data science is very my bread and butter, like I use it day in, day out. So coming to the education technologies, so recently like my focus shifted to having some contribution for the education technology. So if you see here how a teacher works and how a student learns, there are some tasks which can be automated. So coming to the automation part, like there may be evaluations. For example, if you have multiple choice questions and student submits a Google form, let us say form in web page form, there is no intelligence required. The computer in the back end in the server has to just see whether it's correct answer or wrong answer. Whereas if a student writes an essay answer, when I say essay answer, very long text, there is no direct way of evaluating whether it's correct or not. And if the session is happening in internet, where 1,000 students are auditing that course, 1,000 students are doing that course, a single person cannot go through all those long essays and then figure out what's the quality of the answer. So he has to invariably adapt to some automated solutions for that. So that's when AI comes into picture. So not only that, like, that's just a triggering point. There are so many aspects where AI comes into picture. So once the round is over, like, I will get on more details. So yeah, I will pass it on.
Thank you very much, and my warmest greetings from Russia. And I would like to start my presentation with a short story, not about artificial intelligence, but about my cat. I have a cat who has a very strong enemy, and this enemy is my vacuum cleaner. So every time I start vacuum cleaning the carpet to get rid of the sand, and it produces noise, my cat gets scared intensively, and it runs around the house making impression that he's about to die. And it's the strongest emotional feeling that this animal ever had. To me, vacuum cleaner is just a tool, an instrument which helps me to collect the sand. If I didn't have that vacuum cleaner, I would have to collect the sand manually with my hands, which is not good at all. If my cat knew that vacuum cleaner is just an instrument, he wouldn't be scared. He would probably use it the same way as we do, but unfortunately, he doesn't have such ability. So, in my view, artificial intelligence is a sort of a vacuum cleaner to us all. If you know how to use it properly, we use it just to pick up sand or rice from the carpet, so that not to do it with our own hands, just a tool. But if you don't know how it is used and what for it exists, it is a monster. So artificial intelligence is a monster, but it's a monster that exists in our imagination. Now I will switch to what we do, because I completely agree with Harry that the story of artificial intelligence didn't begin 3 years ago. It's a very, very long story. And when Harry started to explain that, I remembered that there was such a sociologist whose name was Jacob Moreno, who did a great job exploring a relationship between students. There was a situation when one of the students ran away from school and nobody knew why. He found a way to measure relationship between students. He called it sociometrics, and that helped him to predict the situations where students were about to drop out or leave the group or do something which is not good from the point of view of teachers. So we tried to, in our work in the National Society for Technology and Education in Russia, we tried to use existing tools and instruments to go even further. In many Russian schools, as well as in India and in our countries of the world, teachers and students now collaborate and communicate in virtual environments, even if they are members of the same school. In our case, we used several schools where teachers used Google Apps for communication. Really sorry for using this word in your present, but that system helps to produce millions and millions of data. And in most situations, this data just dropped out and left out and nobody is particularly interested in those huge logs that information systems are produced. But we found a way to extract certain meaning from them. And that meaning is helping us to see how students collaborate when they do something in the classroom. And to us, this information is very, very valuable because it helps to really see very specific pathways that the students follow. And we call this direction of work collaboration mining, because in our case, data help us to see how students collaborate and predict how well they're going to collaborate in future. So to us, this is a very important implication of artificial intelligence because in some cases, it even helps to predict how well the students will pass the test. So we are coming closer to the situation when we don't need actual tests to see how well the students are going to take them. And if we do that, it would be really very important and a very disruptive innovation for our educational system, because testing is kind of a breaking point for many educational systems. And in this case, we use machine learning and artificial intelligence to see how well the student is doing, which pathway he is choosing, and what is good or bad for him in this particular situation. So in my point of view, artificial intelligence is just continuing a very important line of research in pedagogy and psychology and helping us to make the next step in transforming our educational systems. Thank you.
I'm Vinnie Jory, and I'm the Director for Education Evangelism at Microsoft. Microsoft has has made substantial efforts to build up use case scenarios for artificial intelligence, and the work continuously evolves worldwide as well as in India as well. First of all, artificial intelligence is a confluence of multiple technologies. It's not that it's just it's an independent technology on its own. So you have multiple areas like data sciences, cloud, machine learning, ability to see patterns through large data, connecting the dots that gives richer insights. So as has been shared earlier, that data has existed, right? Every single state, every single school or the classroom has zillions of bytes of data which is collected manually, and now we are also making an effort to collect the data digitally. But then what do you do with that? So you have patient records, you have farmers' output through agriculture, you have student dropout ratio, you have student dropouts as well, but what do we do with it? So Microsoft looks at solving problems using artificial intelligence and making it relevant to the economies where it operates. So I'll give you an instance of a pilot that it did with the government of Andhra Pradesh. So with multiple districts, there is data of schools, of students, of their demographics, social aspects, and also their academic performance as well. So this data was collected, and then algorithms were created to predict from multiple districts if this was the data at an individual level, social level, academic level, then which are the students who will drop out of the school. So imagine that in various districts and at a school level, if you can predict that who are the students who will drop out, then schools and teachers can take proactive measures to work with those students and extend support to them so that they are guided and they can continue with the school. So it's a game changer, and the results were tested, and with more than about 90% accuracy, the data actually matched with the actual dropouts that happened. So now the government of Punjab and in multiple states, these interventions are being looked at. And education is not just for school education. I mean, if you look at healthcare, for example, a country like India where, you know, there are huge challenges in terms of access to healthcare and medicine. If you can, for instance, there was a collaboration done with Ellen Prasad Eye Care Hospitals, and data of patients was collected and looked at their conditions as well. And through artificial intelligence, through algorithms that were created, it could be predicted if one goes for a LASIK surgery, will the surgery be effective or not? Imagine every patient who comes in and wants to use his own money or from insurance, and if he knows whether he should go in for that surgery or not, I think it's a big support, and it's a personalized input that one can receive. Likewise for farmers in agriculture as well. Climate changes are happening, and if a farmer knows that the right time of sowing a crop sowing the seeds, depending upon the geographical location he is and the soil conditions that exist, he can have a better yield if we get deeper insights. So as it stands today, I mean, we need to, from an academic perspective, we need to work with multiple industry partners to develop those use case scenarios and actually solve those problems. So in artificial intelligence, so how do you massify it? How do you ensure that competencies get built for faculty, for students? So you need curriculum for that. And curriculum, something that's available in public domain for everyone to access. But you also need quality because, I mean, a lot of content is available. How do you ensure quality so that you could look at industry certifications? We have a professional program which certifies at a global level. But I think it's an endeavor where close partnerships with multiple stakeholders, different areas could be looked at and use case scenarios can be created.
So thanks for this opportunity to UNESCO and the organizers for inviting me. So we have discussed and the panelists have given some perspective, and I think I really like the example of artificial intelligence as a vacuum cleaner. Because artificial intelligence, as we talk about it, is just a technological tool to solve certain problems. And then what we need to focus on first, maybe take a step back and look at what are the problems in education today. And there are some things which can be done pretty naturally using artificial intelligence, and personalization is one of them. If you have a series, you can identify the learning levels of people and deliver content as per the level of the kid. That's really nice, and I was attending a lot of the sessions since morning in various rooms. I see there are various levels of personalization that people have gone through, like module level, skill level, and that is really nice. The question is, will it apply for India? Here we are making a big assumption that the kid has a tablet available, or a computer or a PC or something available with them to help them in the personalization journey. That's the whole word, is personalized. That means you have a gadget with you. If you look at the city kids, maybe yes, they might have them, but then for us as in the government, our primary focus is the rural kids who are left out, and the problems are huge, and the things are like, as there's a huge gap in the pupil teacher ratio. Like, and then there are multiple classes, like single teacher taking multiple classes, like one teacher taking classes for class 1 to class 5 because there are no teachers available, the lack of teachers available there. This leads to learning levels of these kids are very low, and we have the ACER and the NAS course for India, for the various states which are there in public domain. If you look at those courses and see, when you ask a standard 5 student whether they can do standard 3 and standard 3 maths and English and reading, not always English, reading at satisfactory level, they cannot do something which is like 2 grades below them. So if these are the grave things, and we are not talking of a system where personalization can help, at least personalization that we are seeing today. If we can modify it for the Indian scenario, then we can possibly scale in that. So how you as innovators, I also definitely consider you, because you have worked in this domain for a long time, to give innovations and on how we can personalize it, and also to the experts in the audience who can, I would like to get some advice from them also. So these are some of the challenges that we face in the education sector today. You gave a very good example about Microsoft looking at the student level records. In my previous job role, I was working for the Singapore government, and they have student level records, and looking at student level records for the last 2-3 years, we could predict with pretty high accuracy what marks, the range in which they will get the next marks. That could be done at pretty, because it was important, because based on the marks they were allowed to take either a difficult elective or a easier elective. So it was something that I was working with the Singapore government. So if you have marks in digital format, that is pretty much doable. But as you will know, madam, very well, is that only in a few states in India we are talking about storing like grades at each semester at any exam in digital format. Even like city level private schools don't store that. So there are bits and pieces, but then if you take the whole India as a whole, maybe 95% of schools don't store student records. They might store the demographic records, but demographic records are not good for prediction. You need the scores, you need the socio-economic background, you need all the other things. So we have to take a step back and see, to do personalization, to apply AI, these are the prerequisite stuff. Today we are talking about AI in the West because they have gone through the digital revolution. In digital revolution, they have spent the last 20 years moving from paper to digital, and they are sitting on huge volumes of data. Singapore, as I'm telling the example, they first built that student record system, and they built it for the last 4 years, collected data, and then I came in there and then did the analytics. And that is, doing analytics is always a sexy part. It's like the icing on the cake. But you have to do a lot of mundane hard work before that to see that sexy part on the top. So you have to go through that, that part also. But I think there is a lot of scope for India to do. And when we are talking about personalization today, we are trying to take applications from the West and directly apply them in the Indian context. It will not work. Kalidas gave a good example of writing an essay. You didn't tell specifically, but I'm assuming you talked about writing an essay in the computer. Like if you think about writing, a student writing an essay on a paper in vernacular languages, if you see OCR, optical character recognition, is pretty much developed for English, but for the Indian languages, if you look at English first, out of the 1.3 billion population of India, only 200 million people are speaking English. The rest 1.1 billion, no English, they are not accessible at all. So how do we access them? There is a big population that is lying there. Can we have AI solutions that can, given a piece of paper, make it from handwritten, and handwritten with a child's handwriting? Because I always try to focus, when I talk about education, I always try to focus on school education because that's the base. A child's handwriting, can an AI system understand that and turn it to digital? And once you can turn it into digital, you can possibly grade it automatically. If you can do this simple stuff, it will help the teacher. It's a good idea for Microsoft if they can help us in this, in this journey. So then grading that essay or whatever the answer is written there, then what happens is that the teacher who is taking 5 classes, at least she is relieved of her time to check the content. You can tell this is student number 1, and this student number 1 has done so and so scores, and these are the 5 lacking points. He or she does spelling mistakes in this area. For question number 2, for student number 2, these are the lacking areas. By looking at the handwritten papers, evaluating them and giving this information on the fly to the teacher. Otherwise, in the absence of a digital system, the teacher has to remember all of these things. She is already taking 5 classes together, 5 or 3 classes. She has to teach multiple content, and then we are making her check the papers and then remember all the deficiencies of the student. And then she is not a superhuman. We cannot expect her to do all of this. How can AI aid her and augment her in her day-to-day work? These are the type of applications that we are looking at, where the teachers will be benefited to a huge level. Half of the work that they are doing will be done automatically so that they can do more teaching. Like as when we are thinking about, in the Indian government scenario at least, there are a lot of online app market there in the market today. At least in the government scenario, when we are thinking about education sector, we are not thinking about replacing the teacher. We are thinking about making the teacher's life easier. How can the teacher's life be easier, and how can AI applications help in that front? I think these are all open questions, and I'll be happy to take comments from everyone on this. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. I think panel disagrees on nothing. So let's start with Avik's excellent remarks on. We have different understanding on personalization, different understanding on scaling. And if discussing what's already been solved, more or less, the massive open online courses has proven that we can deliver education for masses. The group size 200,000 is not a problem. But the personalization part, haven't seen too much already. On the other hand, there are that many good solutions where is a personalization, and I don't just mean that you can choose if you have a red text or black text, but real noticing where you are now, what you know, what might be the next activity you should do. But I think, and I'm a bit provocative now, I think we don't have too many scaling solutions with personalization, or we don't have scaling that scales over the different systems. Because way too often, most of the scaling stuff are inside one system. But how we can take either user data out of it, or how we can use other systems to scale more other systems. So my next question is that, and of course, yeah, one big thing, there are also cultural differences, culturally different needs. So things we are needing in Northern Europe are completely different than people are needing, for example, Southeast Asia. So under this context, I'd like to ask good examples on good personalization at scale, or scale that really scales to other systems. And if not, what has been the challenges? Because I think for us, it's really important to understand different perspectives, different cultures, and different kind of scaling. So, very complex question. You can start on whatever point you feel comfortable.
Thank you, Harris. So Harris' question was how the different cultures adapt the personalization in the artificial intelligence topics. So before that, I would like to first give a definition of what is artificial intelligence. I hope it makes sense, because how many of the audience are already with mathematics background? Okay, some people have different background. So if you see artificial intelligence, like what is going on in our mind is this. Represent any concept in the form of numbers. When you are able to represent any concept in the form of numbers, we will be able to compare these numbers. We will be able to cluster these numbers. For example, if king and queen, two words are coming together in one paragraph, and there are 1,000 paragraphs where these two king and queen word are coming together, we will say that king and queen belong to one concept, maybe some royal family concept. Okay? So this is what I'm talking about, representing in the form of numbers will bring out a revolution. So I would call it, instead of artificial intelligence revolution, it is a revolution of number format representation. So vector representation of real world concepts. So once you have a vector, like you can do a lot of artificial intelligence steps. So coming to the personalization aspect, when a student learns something, how do we know he is learning faster or he is not learning faster? So if you take a very simple example, the computer may, I'm imagining a case where he is using a computer to communicate with the teacher. So let's set that framework at least. So the computer sends question 1 of difficulty level 1, let us say. Then he won't be able to answer it. Then the question sends another difficulty level 0.5 to him. He may be able to answer it. Then the computer will send another question of difficulty level 0.75. He is able to answer it. So it can adjust based on the user's answers, the kind of questions that this guy is able to answer. Between each question, if the time one person is taking 1 minute to answer every question, if the second person is taking 30 minutes to answer, computer can figure out based on the time to answer and based on the difficulty level of the question, this person is a quick learner. So it can pull out from its database a content which is more complex for the quick learner. it can pull out from the database a content which is less complex for the slow learner. Possibly it can increase the course length. So this is what is personalization, like roughly you can relate it to what is personalization I'm talking about. So there are different cultural groups. Each cultural group has got its own perception levels, understanding levels. Any personalization has to happen in the context, in collaboration between the teacher who composes these questions and the content developers, basically. Teacher is a content provider, content developer. So with the teacher and the software, the programs that we have, libraries that we have, artificial intelligence means, imagine it's a software suite that is there. So it is in collaboration between the teacher, the software developer, and the software suite together can address various types of personalization issues across the world, I believe. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. It's a very nice question, and I'm recalling the words of famous American psychologist and researcher Seymour Papert, who invented the logo programming language, which gave birth to a whole bunch of new environments, who once said that the situation in education will change when children will start to wear computers as they wear their shoes. That's a quotation. And at the time when he said that, it was about 1968. Nobody understood what he actually meant because computers were as large as this hall, for example. But now we're facing this situation that every child has actually a very powerful device in their pocket. And we see a situation where technology scales itself regardless of we want it or not. Our duty as educators is to respond to this scalability, because technology has a very strong intention to scale itself. If it's something really quality, if it's something really catching, it will scale itself regardless of we want it or not. In my view, dealing with data and making sound prediction based on machine learning methods is also technology that is supposed to scale itself. But for us, for educators, it's a matter of ethics and it's a matter of hygiene, so to say. We all clean our teeth with a toothbrush, not because somebody makes us do that, but because we understand it. It's a perfectly scaled technology, toothbrush and toothpaste. And the same thing should happen with data. But before it happens, we need to come to many important conclusions and agreements, because we all understand that data is a very powerful mechanism and it's a very dangerous thing if we don't treat it properly. Like my vacuum cleaner, if I just throw it out of the window and it falls on somebody's head, it will cause troubles, despite of the fact that vacuum cleaner is generally a very good thing. So the same thing with data. We need to understand how it can be used. What is the ethical dimension of using data? What's the political and social dimension of dealing with data? In my opinion, UNESCO can do a great job trying to see and come to certain guidelines of dealing with data in education. And I see it as a very important task which is about to be brought to broad political agenda. For example, in my country, there is a very strong tension in everything that concerns data. So the government thinks that the best way to deal with data is not to let anybody access to that. And we all understand that we live in the world when this is not about to happen. Data is like water or like air. It spreads everywhere, regardless of our will or lack of will to do so. And if we had certain interface or unified protocol of dealing with data in broad human sense, it would be very important for the development of the whole system of education all over the world. And I see that UNESCO might be the organization who can lead this movement and help make this state for many countries which are moving in this direction. Thank you.
So there are different solutions that multiple partners are innovating with the use of AI for personalization. There is one specific case of a company called Report B, which is based out of Chennai in India. And what they have done is they came up with this idea and they were supported through Microsoft Accelerator program as well. In every school, when a child studies, they do get a report card of their performance across multiple subjects over several semesters, and then a final report as well at the end of the year. And normally the faculty just gives the grade, because if a teacher is teaching 100 students in a class, how many of the students would she physically remember in terms of the challenges they face across multiple disciplines? So generally a report card that is given in Indian schools is a broad indicator of the academic performance, and there could be some insights on the other social emotional components as well. But it is all based on the memory of the teacher and the limited or extensive interactions that she would have. So this company they used the data that was in any case being collected by the schools. They, of course, with the consent and permissions, and the feedback that the faculty shared. So this, the entire set of data on the student performance gets collated, and it gives richer insights at a grade level, at a discipline level, and at faculty level as well, in terms of what are the strength areas, whether it's about core concepts, whether it's about application, whether there are other behavioral challenges or areas of strengths. And you could get dashboards for, let's say, physics students. What are the strength areas? What are the weakness areas? What are the students at the top? Where are the students who require more intervention? And likewise across disciplines. So imagine the level of, for example, if there is an issue with the area of learning STEM or mathematics, then if you have insights, then the school could take corrective actions on teachers, or for specific grades if there are issues and not across grades, then those corrective actions can be taken, and the students would be direct beneficiaries of that. Also, in addition, like, there are tools embedded in the software as well, which, for example, if Cortana in the Office 365, like if students are using, you could, for example, searching for a particular area, or there is way that you are spending more time on a particular area, it could give you insights into the patterns of your behavior, and could also help or facilitate with smart search in that area. Likewise, when you are, for example, OneNote, when you are writing down or you're doing collaborative work, and the teacher wants to give feedback, or there are areas that students get stuck up, they could record the challenges that they are facing through an audio. It's not like writing or annotate. You could annotate, but you could also record the sound, the feedback as well. And likewise, the feedback of the faculty can be done as well. But when you consolidate that over hundreds and thousands of students, you start to see patterns, and then you can start to see what kind of proactive measures can be taken. So I think it's a journey, and it will require a lot of confluence of multiple institutions to collaborate and these solutions will continuously evolve from the marketplace. Microsoft Research is also experimenting with bots as well. For example, different people, there's a project called RU, which is where people are sending questions, all different kinds of questions of different age groups to interact, and there will be things that will come up as to what are the areas where the challenges are, what kind of things could be standardized. So it's work in progress.
So as I was mentioning, like personalization in the true sense, like one child, one machine or computing is something that I have not seen, because I primarily work with the government schools, and this is not feasible. One of the states in one of the districts, what they are trying to do was work with e-content, because just to augment the teachers. So there's districts like a county So they are making the e-content available to the students. Just say if you are learning physics in standard 8, you have your teacher teaching you, but there is also a range of e-content on the same subject available from other teachers in the district. And they have all collected them, curated them, and put them in one place. And they were trying to see which were the most popular, and are this helping them learn the concepts better. There, I think the maximum that they were working well is like 5 to 10 kids per PC, because government schools have a very limited budget. Like I was working with one state recently about procurement of computers and e-learning for the whole state in the government schools. And if you look at the budget, you can possibly buy maybe 10 desktops for the whole school that will be used in different times of the day by different classes. So that is the max that you can afford, and you have to manage it by sharing it across different things. So this was a very innovative thing, because at least the students were getting exposed to a lot of learning content, and if there is a teacher in another district who teaches the subject very well, that was been available to the student here. And over time, as people were viewing the popular content more, over time the better content was getting more popularity. So like something like YouTube was in a very local manner. It was targeted for class standard 8 to standard 12 kids, because that is where in the STEM area only the learning those concepts becomes very difficult, so they want to augment it, and it pretty much worked well. It was also with one of the Indian Institute of Management in that area who had taken up this project and was working with them on this. So there are bits and pieces where I have seen working, but not the personalization where you mean personalization in the true sense. That is yet to happen, I think.
Yeah, thanks. Boris and Winnie mentioned data, challenges, possibilities. And let's take a quick round about data, the biases, the, well, unexpected behaviors before giving floor for audience. So meanwhile we discuss, think what you want to ask. But unexpected behavior, one example. In my team, 2005, not the current team, the previous one, we developed a school as a game where kids were teachers. So the idea was that kids are teaching the game characters, and the game characters learn like they were taught. So real machine learning application for K to 6 kids. Okay, kids were teaching the game characters learn, kids can send them to perform different missions or compete to other game characters. And okay, of course, we were interested in learning outcomes, so pre-test, effect, post-test. And results were great. Only there were one group that get the biggest learning outcome, so gained the most. And those were kids who decided to teach completely dumb game characters. So not random, dumb, always wrong, always behaving wrongly. And why they do better work, two factors. First thing is that teaching an AI to completely dumb takes more time, so more actions, than teaching a perfect game character. And the other thing was they were way more motivated to teach dumb characters, because then they could laugh to characters and the AI don't get harmed if it is laughed. But they can also say that, hey, my character is dumber than yours. And my friend answered, yeah, it's now, but wait a second, my character is very soon dumber than yours. And so there is no this kind of barrier that, am I better than you? I should be shamed if I don't know everything. But when the idea was that the dumbest character is the best one, nobody should be ashamed if they have done wrong teaching. And these two factors together made that we didn't decide the game to be a game where kids are teaching dumb characters. But the outcome shows that it was the most effective way to learn. And this is an example of unexpected outcome, for example, on education. But not necessarily unexpected outcomes, but a quick round. What do you feel in ethical point of view or possibility point of view? What kind of activities we should do around data, around AI, because we know biased, manipulated data is a challenge, as well as unexpected outcomes are something we just don't know because they are unexpected. But quick round, what comes in my mind, what comes your mind, and we don't have to have order, just continue when you have something, ideas. So short, let's keep this short.
Okay. So regarding the problems with data access, the confidentiality breach issues. So the kind of data, if you see, what artificial intelligence includes, the kind of data is speech to, so some examples I will give. Speech data, someone speaking something converted to text, text converted to speech. So video, someone does some action and the system can recognize what actions are happening. So all of this data, like numerical data, textual data, the audio, video kind of data, some data are very private to a particular individual. So he doesn't want to share. Let us say one guy is doing a course and he took a lot of time to complete the course. If some company wants to hire that person and figures out that he has taken a lot of time to understand some concepts, the company may not prefer to take that person. The company may prefer to take some other person who luckily could finish it faster. So when it comes to employability, when it comes to the real financial aspects and the life of a person, certain data, the AI system should not share. Like there should be policies to protect data.
Yeah, really good point. I have to say that I don't have jobs anymore because I am drop out approximately 50 MOOCs. I think most of us has tried some massive open online courses and quit them. I have done that more than 50 times, so I have no future.
Thank you. In my view, the main transition that access to data can give us is the transition from preset curriculums in schools to learning environments. Let me explain that. The actual meaning of the word curriculum is road track. That is the track through which the horses carried carriages in the Latin world. And it's interesting that the width of the road track remained the same since then. And now the spaceships that are carried by trains are using the same length of, the same width of tracks that were used in the times of the Roman Empire. It's 1,435 millimeters. So the main issue with education is that it uses preset curriculums in most cases, where we could use learning environments that give students opportunities to study in more personalized manner. And the solution of that would be a different approach to educational data. A real educational process generates billions and billions of records. And the problem is that educators don't yet know what to do with this data. So if we find a way to make this data available, if we find a way to make the use of this data ethical and legal, I'm sure that they will be able to find more ways and more tools for measuring what students actually do, how they actually collaborate, and that will be a real new step towards building an educational environment.
So in terms of data usage, Microsoft adheres to the highest standards of integrity of using data. This is the GDPR guidelines. Every individual has a right to their personal information. So we never store any PII, personal information, of any customer, any student, any institution without formal consents being in place. And as a part of GDPR guidelines, the customers and individuals have rights to look into where their data is stored, how is it stored, and they have a right to change permissions as well, whether they would like to continue their usage of their data. And it has to be an explicit consent. It's not like doing 10 pages of forms and someone says, I accept, and it's the consent is given. It's categorically whether it's an event or so it's a tick mark that I'm willing to share, or you can reach out to me with an email or a phone call, or I don't want. So those choices are clearly exercised by the consumer. And I think that's fundamental because these are rights that should be respected, and one should comply to those guidelines that are being set.
I think what has been discussed and told very well is like if there are personalized platforms that students are using, then access to that data becomes more important. And I completely agree with that. I have no different view on that. What I would also like to add to that data is that more possibly primary research data. Like if you teach a certain thing, what learning is achieved through that. Doing that through primary research and making those available so that this helps better in developing the content in the long run. I think this is data which is to be done by educators or through research activity. I think this is what will help this personalization tools or platforms develop content more. Instead of say modules, you once mentioned during the previous discussion about like micro learnings, because say I might understand most of the stuff in physics, but there are two very minor things that are missing for me. Do I have to repeat that whole 8 hours of the activity and course, or is there a possibility of spending only 15-20 minutes? And if that 15-20 minutes, how? So you have to break everything up into smaller parts. If the personalization is that level, that would require not only data for AI, but I think data from the educators and the domain knowledge, people, actual teachers. So we have to take this data from teachers and student focus groups that can help. But this is my view. I think since you have already worked on it, you might be able to confirm those views better.
Just to add, so personalization along with anonymization, like if the data has to be published, shared with others, maybe anonymization, that means removing any personal information in the data, that may also be a good idea to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And one I have to mention is that we have in education, in healthcare, we have always been super careful with identities. But at the same time, we know that there are big companies collecting even more detailed data about ourselves, locations where we were being, what we have done, what we have communicated, and so on and so on. In that sense, sometimes it feels that we are shooting in our own angle when we don't use the possibilities in order to improve healthcare, improve education, improve individuals' possibilities. But of course, we must have this ethical discussion, and we can't complete it now. We just want to start it, and everyone should join, because the ethics we are discussing now is the ethics we are working for following decades, and that's why it's super important. And even though I sometimes thinking that why in some areas you don't have to follow that much rules, but we still must, because we are dealing with different issues. But now it's come to time to ask the audience. If you have questions, just raise your hand and we try to give microphone and we answer what comes in our minds. Yeah, let's take first in the first row.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jay Krishna. This is question, not question actually, this is something I want to talk to Mr. Avi, as you are part of Niti Aayog. Like Atal Tinkering Lab, you know about, is implementing solutions like labs for all the schools across India. Like now almost 5,000 schools have been implemented. So just, I mean, you already told, because I am taking this opportunity to tell this, that as you told that we need more of rural areas to get people educated in this AI. Why don't you, considering India, as make AI as part of a curriculum to all the students from all the all the areas in part of syllabus, and also a dedicated AI resource in terms of how you are doing it for other subjects. So what it is, as you said, last 20 years we're building a platform for Western countries. We miss the bus. So we may miss the bus again if you are not prepared for the next wave.
So you're talking about AI in school level curriculum or college level?
I'm talking about school level. Means we have, in terms of Atal Tinkering Lab, we have doing it. In terms of more personalizing, when you're talking about personalization, I'm talking about having that in place in a more defined way.
Yes, yes. So see, when these Atal Tinkering Labs is something that we have been doing since last 3-4 years. Like planning started about 4 years, and since last 3 years today, I think we have now 2,500 schools where we have given to. So in Tinkering Labs, when we started with the thing is that AI is just one technology. It's more more of getting the students to try things hands-on. That is the objective. So now they might try things hands-on either in robotics or AI or mobile development, or they can build some Lego models. So it's more of thinking the making and breaking is the objective of our Tinkering Lab. AI can be one of the things, and we are only like describing things like if you are working closely with the Atal Tinkering Labs, you will know we are not telling that you have to do this. We are telling these are the broad area that you can follow, and each school, there can be one school which can decide to focus on biotechnology, and another school not doing anything with biotechnology but doing something completely on mobile development. So this is the independence that we are given to the schools. So as AI is something new, we have to again take it at a level which the kids can grasp. Today if you see AI concepts, to understand AI concepts, one is like when you use a function in TensorFlow or some other package, you don't have to understand the concept. But if you have to understand the concept, you have to understand some amount of the basic linear algebra behind it. So that understanding of linear algebra only comes at like class 11, 12. So before that, if they are doing, they will be treating it as a black box sort of thing. I think that sort of thing which they can be introduced to. It's not a challenge. I was seeing also some of the companies who are showcasing, they are showcasing innovative things. I think it will be very easy for some of them to bring like AI in a box that children can play out with. I think one of them was telling about speech recognition and image recognition is something that they are doing already. I think one of the things there. So I think that is very much possible for the kids. Thank you.
AI is a compulsory course in the undergraduate and postgraduate level in IIT Tirupati. The same model is followed in other IITs also.
He is talking at school level.
At a school level, there are today schools that are working towards setting up AI labs. So they are tinkering with, for example, the school-related issues that they might have, and designing the school building and then looking at sustainable practices or maybe other areas, energy or environment, and use AI. So there are today partners who are working and enabling the children to solve problems using AI techniques.
Yes, and that is also one of the good things about the Tinkering Labs is that like companies like say Microsoft, IBM, Intel, they have taken over about say 50 to 100 schools, and it is up to their discretion about what depth and depth they want to go to for the student. If they see that the students can grasp it, they can teach them even very advanced content. Yes, yes.
Okay, sorry, you can continue outside. We had that many hands up, so let's do in a way that let's take 3 questions in a row. Sorry to interrupt, but let's take 3 questions in a row and let's try to be a bit fast, so we have just 10 minutes to go. So,
thank you, gentlemen, for your nice discussion. This is Professor J.V.R. Murthy, Professor of Computer Science from Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University, Kakinada, and I am the in charge of the Incubation Center. And we are practicing most of the things which you said. In fact, we are developing our own educational ERP for the university through our students. We are training the students, and we have industry connect there. We have Wipro and Tetrasoft, like some companies coming to our incubation center and helping. Now we developed certain modules because we are a university with 262 affiliated colleges and with 500,000 students. And we are conducting the examinations for them and accumulating the data. So we thought this ERP will help us in bringing up the decision support system. And before going to a personalized learning, we want to have a clustered analysis of the stuff. That is region-wise, subject-wise, different parameters, how students are faring. And we want to study those clusters And from there, yes, in this region or with this kind of scenario, the people are finding difficult things, so that the data security issues also will not arise there. So that kind of thing we are going ahead. In fact, our own students developed our financial modules and the grievances modules and all for that. It is there in stall 1 we are displaying. In fact, with 300,000 entries, we made our trial balance for the university. So this is by training the students. And with this concept, we want to drive them to the machine learning algorithms and for further analysis. So you can suggest us, is it a better way? Or you can have a look and you can suggest us also. Then we can go for personalized learning. And for data security also, what I feel is in healthcare insurance you are talking, you can in fact conceal the information that is like the name, age, gender kind of information you can conceal. And still you can have the parameters of the person for clustering and classification analysis and still give results. That's my suggestion.
Okay, and meanwhile, panelists are thinking. Let's take a second question for a row.
Yeah, can I finish? Quick question. Vinny mentioned about Report B as one of the tools. We are an NGO working with a lot of government schools. We work with more than 150 government schools, which are at the lowest end of the spectrum. So I would like to know if there are some technologies, the AI technologies which have scaled, which we can take to, let's say, hundreds of schools, which can benefit in improving the learning outcome in the classrooms at a primary classroom level. Are there proven technologies, some examples?
Okay, and let's take a third one. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Samina Banu, and I work with several state governments on school education, including UP government, Jharkhand, and a couple of other states. Since I'm in education space, so one observation and one question I have. One quick observation, I can see several supplier side panelists here. I would have liked to see some more people from education side, like education and schools. Good to see Avik sir, he's representing government, but some representation from school and educationists would have added some more value to the whole discussion. And question I have is, there is evidence, research evidence, which has shown in Indian context at least, that any technological intervention within classroom hours have actually produced negative learning outcome results. Outside classroom hours have produced some positive, but overall first wave of technology intervention hasn't been very successful. One interesting intervention I heard from Vinny Ji from Microsoft was about early warning system for out-of-school children, where technology was used in governance. So I want to understand what is it that different thing is happening in the second wave of technology revolution in education, something more in the lines of using technology in governance side, which can be used in Indian context, if there are more solutions available which we can take to states and maybe implement and improve on student retention and learning outcomes.
Okay, thank you. And let's try to keep that only a couple of answers per question maximum, but who wants to start?
So there are several solutions that are available in terms of the work that we have done with government schools and in very remote parts of the country as well. And it's not just in one state. Tamil Nadu, for example, in the Zilla Parishad schools, Sholapur in Maharashtra, and these are amazing government school teachers who have worked with the communities and used multiple tools to bring the world to the classroom, with very limited infrastructure, with very limited bandwidth, with very limited, maybe just one personal laptop in the classroom and using maybe a wall to amplify, or, to project on the screen. But they have come up with amazing solutions, and there are so many fine examples of those educators, and we could connect you to see how that has worked. I mean, it's we can connect offline, but amazing insights today in Maharashtra. This teacher who worked and pioneered using Skype and going on virtual field trips, he's doing science experiments. He used QR coding to have children access to more materials, And today, so many state governments have embraced that and millions of students are benefiting. Government made investments in a Skype collaboration center, and he's reaching out to lakhs of students, showing them virtual experiments. Children are going on expeditions, doing experiments with robotics. So it's the passion and the will and the ability to make it happen. Infrastructure challenges can be overcome.
I can add to it just a short point. There is a research by OECD, the organization that does international study of educational systems throughout the world, which clearly shows that technological interventions do not lead to any improvement of educational systems if they are taken alone. Only a complex of several steps can move an educational system to something better. And the first item in this list is teacher training. First, we need to improve the mindset, to change the mindset of the teacher, make him understand how the technology is used, and more broadly, how data can be used. And this is the crucial point in changing the educational system. The second factor is the transformation of teaching standards, because if we try to measure all standards with new means, we will not find any improvement. We definitely need to treat the system as a whole, a holistic whole. And the third factor is building homogeneous educational environments at schools, which comprise both technology, human factors, resources, and many other things. So we are to build an educational ecosystem, and only then we will see some improvement caused by technology.
Yeah, and I have to highlight also that when talking about taking technology to classroom, too often it means that bringing computers without pedagogy, bringing computers without educational software, bringing computers without this and that. So that makes an understanding that technology don't work, even though we are discussing that if you just bring the computers, it don't work. Have to highlight also that in areas of developing educational software or including educational games, there has been measured remarkable learning outcomes when we bring motivation and good instruction in. So want to say that if you just see one research, technology don't help education, read what is the settings, because the settings is more important than the black and white outcome. And that's one. But yeah, back to panelists. But yeah. We answered 2 questions. Yeah, ideas, good idea. First, have to do traditional statistical analysis, and only after that going for machine learning, because going for machine learning is expensive, doing statistical analysis cheap, so good idea.
I think this is working, yeah. So my concern is, I just had this image that if Paulo Freire had been teaching in an age of big data, that he would have taught for a day and been arrested, and that would have been done. And so my question is about the, it kind of picks up on some of what's been said about, and I really appreciate the talk about systems. My question is about teachers and teacher freedom with respect to data. We tend to talk only about positive aspects of data and only around privacy. But the issues about data are, I think as Boris and many of you pointed out, ethical issues, including the amounts of data and the continuity of data and how much data we have. Those are ethical concerns as well. So some of us believe that good teaching is always or often a matter of resistance and often a matter of working against the system on behalf of those that are in your classroom. And even in good learning environments, good teachers don't go away. Good teachers need to be in good learning environments. So what constraints or limitations does constant and continuous and ubiquitous data put on teaching as an act of resistance?
Really good point. But we are out of time, so if somebody wants to answer really quickly, then it is okay. Let's take one question and then really quick answers.
So my question is actually an extension of what he asked. I mean, I also work at an NGO and we teach underprivileged kids. The problem with the digital technology is also, you know, the adaptability for the teachers. I mean, it's a huge task. You provide them laptops, computers, tablets, but it's of no use unless they start using it at the school level of what I've seen. So how can these AI tools be, made so adaptive, and how difficult is it a challenge for a teacher training program of how teachers can use these AI tools so that students can use it later on? I mean, there can be a collaboration between both of them.
Yeah, I think that is one of the main things which I told in my beginning also. Like, we have to come up with tools which help the teachers. If it's helping them, then they will adapt it to their usage. Currently, whenever we talk about personalization, they tell that, okay, students, your personalized tools are trying to connect directly to the students, possibly bypassing the teacher in between. There can be different models. So they might not support that. If you bring in tools, and personalization is just one of those many tools. There has to be more local tools and technologies, AI-based, that can be developed for India, like what we were talking about, say, screening up question papers, making time available, making all the judgment, as Vinny was giving their example. If you can give a detailed report sheet with all the strengths, and not only at the time of giving the report card, but even like, there is a semester of 3 months, end of month 1, you know what are the weaknesses of the students, and then work on them in month 2 and month 3. Make sure that the kid is at a good level by the end of the semester. If you can use those feedback for learning, and that helps the teacher, I think that is how we have to help the tools. I think, again, with learning tools, it's not just the teaching. Whenever there are technological interventions that comes, because I have spent a lot of time in consulting organizations in the past, you have to also deal with the change management aspect. Change management is just the organization or the people who have been using the old way of doing things have to adapt to the new technological way of doing things. Whether it's AI or computers or any system, that change management has to be forced to some extent, at least in the Indian scenario. I don't know about the European one, but it has to be drop-driven at some times.
All right. Unfortunately, we are that much behind schedule that we have to continue our discussion after the session. Let's give a big hand to panelists. And thank you for audience for being here. Let's continue in the hall.
Thanks to you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have sessions about